I suppose it's part of what Neil was talking about, the whole package. So that to be a good cricketer or to be the best that you can, there's obviously work you need to do on your technique, but there are other things that you can do to develop yourself as a player, as Neil said, to give you the edge. And that's what's great about this academy, that there are opportunities to do that, whether it be through improving your fitness, improving your strength, your flexibility, or paying attention to other areas that will help you develop as a player. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I'm going to focus largely tonight on healthy eating, but I'm also going to share with you a little bit of information around brain development amongst adolescents, and particularly amongst adolescent boys, although I know we do have some girls in the academy as well. And particularly some recent research that's identified a couple of areas which are really important to healthy brain development. But if we start with healthy eating, you probably already know what some of the benefits are for putting good food in your body. And you might have heard of the analogy of a car. You need to put good petrol, good oil, you need to look after it if you want it to perform. And your body is exactly the same. If you put good food into it, then it's going to perform to its potential, to its capability, and if you don't, your performance will suffer. There are several areas of your health and of your performance which are linked to the food that you eat. Some of these are well known, such as your body weight, but also when you're growing, to be able to reach your full potential physically, but also as a cricketer, what you eat largely determines how much energy you have to be able to not only play as well as you can, but to train as well as you can. And that's very important. But also, it influences your mood and your performance. And there is more evidence now that shows that having a healthy diet is important for optimal brain function and optimal cognitive development. And when you think about the game of cricket, it does require you to concentrate for long periods of time and to be able to perform at any given moment, particularly if you're in the field for long periods of time. And certainly having a healthy diet can help with that. Now, you may be aware that there are dietary guidelines for children and adolescents in Australia. There is the Australian Guide to Healthy Eating, and if you go into a Google search and look for that, you'll be able to find it. A quick summary suggests that there are some foods that we need to be eating more of than others, and some foods that we particularly need to limit. And I won't go through this, but to show you that this is the Australian Guide to Healthy Eating, and this is set up as a plate to show you which foods you should be eating the most of, which would be breads and cereals, ideally whole grain or wholemeal, and also fruits and vegetables as well. More vegetables slightly than fruits, but not a lot of difference between the two. You also need to supplement your diet with servings of meat, chicken, fish, or protein-rich foods, and also dairy, ideally low-fat dairy, but we'll talk more about that. You need to drink plenty of water, and there are some foods that you need to limit, and you probably know already which foods they are. When we look at diets of adolescents, and apologies if this is a little bit hard to see, most of the evidence tells us that adolescents tend to eat the appropriate numbers of servings of fruit per day, which is somewhere around 3 to 4. They also tend to eat the right amounts of cereals, and they also tend to eat appropriate amounts of meat and of dairy foods as well. The areas where, and probably no surprise as parents, adolescents fall down are lack of vegetables, and also with eating too much of what we would call non-core foods or extra foods. And this is the appropriate numbers of or servings that you should have a day as an adolescent. So we're looking at somewhere around 3 servings of vegetables, which is probably about the size, if you think about a cup of salad vegetables or about half a cup of cooked vegetables. But you could even have that raw as well. So if you're talking about vegetables like capsicum or broccoli or celery or carrots, you could have that certainly raw, equivalent of about half a cup. And these extra foods here are things that are non-core foods. So we would classify most takeaway foods as that. We would classify lollies or confectionery. We classify foods such as ice cream that are high in sugar as an extra food. So not a lot of room to move there. When you think about your average diet or your average day, think about how many of those you might eat. That may be an area of improvement. So I wanted to focus tonight on a couple of key messages that you can take away in terms of how you might be able to maximise your diet or your food habits and eating behaviours. And the first one is making water your preferred drink. That's really important. You should be trying to drink somewhere around 6 glasses a day. So this is in addition to the water that you would get from foods. So most foods does have a component of water, so this is actually drinking it as a glass. Now unfortunately cordial and soft drink and juice don't count. Okay, and that's largely because they contain a lot of sugar. Even juice contains a large amount of sugar. And they have a lot of, therefore, empty calories. So you're actually consuming energy, but you don't actually feel full from it. Now some ways that you can actually cut down, if you do drink a lot of soft drinks, you can cut down on your consumption, is trying to remove your access to them, or your adolescents' access to them. So you might try to take them out of the house. And there is more evidence now to suggest that even diet soft drinks are not necessarily good. The artificial sweetener that's in a lot of dietary soft drinks, there is emerging evidence in terms of the effect that that can have on brain development amongst children and adolescents, and that it is not necessarily a healthy alternative to sugar. So more evidence around dietary soft drinks. But how much sugar is in sweetened drinks? Well, this drink contains the most sugar, which is Mountain Dew, and if you have a 600ml Buddy bottle, it has around 19.5 teaspoons of sugar in it. Coke has around 16, and even Powerade has around 9 teaspoons of sugar in it. Okay, so while it might be marketed as being low in fat or fat-free, which it is, it does have a lot of energy in it because it has a lot of sugar in it. Even orange juice has around 6 teaspoons of sugar in it. So the best drink you can have is water, and the second best drink you can have is low-fat milk. So try to limit these. If you want to avoid them completely, that would be a good step as well, because they contain quite an amount of sugar. So as we see here, sugar is not good for you because it promotes additional weight gain. You don't get a feeling of fullness once you've consumed the food product, as you would say if you were eating a food, and it displaces more nutritious beverages such as water or low-fat milk. Now, what are some ways that you can increase your fruit and vegetable intake? If we're talking about 3 serves of vegetables, 3 serves of fruit a day, most adolescents seem to be eating the required amount of fruit per day. But think about ways that you might be able to offer vegetables, and try to make them as varied as possible. So you can bake vegetables, you can eat them dried, you can eat them raw, you can grate them up, you can even have them as baked beans if you like that. Think about some recipes that you might be able to modify, and I'll show you one a little later on, where you might be able to replace some of the meat and put in it some vegetables. And some of the ones that you can commonly do that with are lasagna or spaghetti bolognese or even stir fries. And it's been shown that it may take up to 18 attempts at trying a food before you develop a taste for it. So if you don't like it the first time, don't give up. Keep offering it as parents. Keep trying it as adolescents. Okay? These are good for you. And over a period of time, you may develop a preference for it. But certainly some ways that have been found to help with consumption of these. If your adolescent or teen comes in and they're very hungry before dinner, if you cut up some vegetables and you have it on the bench and they're hungry, then there's a good chance that they may eat that before dinner, particularly if it's served raw. So things like carrots, capsicum, those sort of vegetables, celery, cucumber are often quite popular before dinner if they're served raw. Now, there are many snack foods on the market today, many processed snack foods, and they're very easy to pack into a lunchbox or to take away if you're going to training, something you can eat quite quickly. Now, with so many on the market, how do I know what's a healthy snack? Now, you're all familiar with the nutrition label, which looks like this. Generally has the components of the food down the side. It then has the amount of each of those components per serving, and you have to be careful and look at this because the serving varies for the different types of food. but most snack foods, the serving size is the packet or the bar or whatever it is you're eating. Now if you want to compare between, because the serving sizes may vary between different bars or between different packets of foods, you might have to use this column which gives it per 100 grams, so that allows you to compare. But a simple rule, if you're in the supermarket and you're looking for a healthy snack, is to use the 500-10-3 rule. So try to have the serving size for the snack to be less than 500 kilojoules per serve. So this food on the left is more than that, the food on the right is the healthier option. So that's the first rule. The second rule is to look at the per 100 grams column and try and pick a snack food that has less than 10 grams of total fat per 100 grams and has less than 3 grams of saturated fat per 100 grams. So that's where we get the 500-10-3 rule from. So less than 500 kilojoules per serve and less than 10 grams of total fat per 100 grams and less than 3 grams of saturated fat. I'll show you an app in a moment which also can help you with choosing healthy, not only snack foods but other foods as well. Some other things that have been shown to help with consumption are packaging those foods attractively, so cutting up fruit, trying to time when you might give them so that it doesn't actually, they're not given too close to a meal so that they might not leave them full before they're eating a meal. And some examples include foods that you're probably used to. So foods in packets, dairy snacks, biscuits, breads, fruits, that type of thing. Nearly all fruit meets the 500-10-3 rule. Okay? Some other suggestions that are really good for snacks: dried fruit and particularly nuts. And nuts are also good, particularly walnuts and other nuts, because they have quite a good amount of omega-3 fatty acids in them, and they also have a high level of fibre in them, which leaves you feeling full, but you don't get any of the added, you don't get any of the sugar or the processed things with that. Small tins of fish are good as well, and also dried fruit. So there's some other suggestions for healthy snacks. Breakfast is probably the most important meal of the day because your body has been fasting for a long period of time beforehand, and therefore it needs something to kickstart it. Kickstart your metabolism. It has been shown that if you don't eat breakfast, your metabolism slows down, which means you burn less energy over the course of the day. And then when you do eat, your body craves sugar and salt a lot more, so you're more likely to eat something unhealthy than eat something healthy. So it provides you with the energy that you need, vitamins, etc., fibre and dairy, all of those things which are really important. Now for some of you, if you find that eating breakfast is hard to do in the morning, there are some things that you can do to try to help you to eat breakfast. You can be more organised the night before so that you've got more time in the morning and aren't as rushed. If you don't feel like eating at all when you wake up, then it has been shown that having a small glass of juice or milk can again stimulate or kickstart your metabolism so that 15 or 20 minutes or 30 minutes after that, you then feel hungry enough to eat breakfast. Or you can pack something to eat on the way to school. So some of these ones that I've shown before, up and go. Something that's liquid is a lot easier to consume often than eating something that's in solid form. But having something you could pack on the way to school can also be helpful in terms of eating breakfast. And it has been shown that the more frequently you eat breakfast, the less likely you are to have unhealthy weight gain. So this shows up here are adolescents who are overweight or obese, and the more frequently they eat breakfast, their actual body weight or their BMI, body mass index, goes down. People who are of a healthy weight, it doesn't seem to have as big an impact, but certainly it is important. Now, one of the things that's made it more difficult to eat a healthy diet today is the increase in portion sizes. So when you look at the typical portion size of McDonald's, from when it first came out in the mid-1950s to around 50 years later, you can see that the increase in the average size or average portion size has increased dramatically over that period of time for most foods, to the point where what used to be the medium fries is now the small fries, and what used to be the medium Coke is now the small Coke. And in addition to that, these foods are much cheaper than they were 40 or 50 years ago. So we're faced with the problem of being able to buy larger portions of unhealthy food at a much cheaper price, which makes it much more difficult to choose healthy foods. So what are some ways that we can reduce our portion sizes? Well, firstly, we can limit the amount of fast food that we have. When we're eating food, it has been shown that if you eat food more slowly, then you're less likely to eat more of it. So if you're sitting down for a meal, if you put your knife or your fork down in between mouthfuls, if you engage in conversation as opposed to, say, watching the television, then you're more likely to eat what would be considered a normal or a healthy portion size. If you eat it fast, with very little talking in between, then you're more likely to eat more than your body needs. It has been shown that, this is called the night eating syndrome, that if you eat after a period of time, and generally it's around 8 p.m, that your body doesn't burn off that food as it would if you ate it earlier. And generally speaking, if you stay up late at night, you tend to eat more unhealthy food, and that food tends not to get digested properly and tends to stay on your body as excess body weight. So try to limit the amount of eating that you have late at night, and that will also help you feel hungry for breakfast in the morning. And try to make meal times a time when you can sit down, you can have conversation. So trying not to eat standing up. If you eat standing up, you tend to eat without knowing it. So if you try and say, well, I eat when I sit down, then you'll tend to actually regulate your food intake a lot more appropriately. And one other thing that has been shown to reduce portion sizes is looking at the serving of the sizes of the plates and glasses and cups that you use. So nowadays, if you think about an average plate, it's actually quite bigger, and is the glasses or the cups, than what they were 20 or 30 years ago. And that again is helping us to have larger portions, or not helping us. Now, if you have a large plate, then you will put more food on it. If you have a smaller plate or a smaller bowl, then you'll tend to eat less. Okay? So try and think about that as you're eating. Try not to eat in front of the television. Again, your body and your mind get distracted with what's on the television, and you tend not to regulate how much you eat. Now, it probably comes as no surprise that eating large amounts and more frequent amounts of takeaway or fast food is not a healthy option. And it has been shown in several studies that if we compare adolescents who have had very little fast food, less than 1 time a week, with those that have had fast food on a more regular basis, 2 times a week or more, that they consume much more grams of total fat, saturated fat, sugar, less fruit and vegetables, and far more soft drinks. So one way that we can make healthier choices is by limiting the amount of fast food that we eat. Not only do we eat more in terms of grams, but we eat more energy in our diet. And most of your diets, if you're engaging in appropriate amounts of physical activity and eating healthy food, you are getting the right amount of energy that you need for your diet. Consuming more fast food will just add empty calories and will not help you to perform at your best. And again, similar studies here where they've compared adolescents who have had no fast food over the previous week, 1 to 2 times and 3 times. You can see a nice linear relationship there between the amount of times that you eat fast food and the amount of energy in your diet. Some other things that can help you in terms of maintaining a healthy body weight are switching from full fat to low fat dairy. So low fat dairy has higher amounts of calcium, lower amounts of fat obviously, higher amounts of protein in it. So switching from full cream to low fat milk, low fat cheese, low fat yogurt, or even more preferably natural yogurt, which has far less sugar added to it as well, can be some healthy choices that you can make. In terms of modifying recipes, CSIRO have a good cookbook which is available online around healthy meal preparation. The Heart Foundation do as well. But some of the things that you can do is take a recipe that you might enjoy, lasagna or spaghetti bolognese, and just by making some simple modifications you can make this meal a lot healthier. So the average lasagna, which might have largely meat, cheese, pasta sheets, bolognese type of sauce, you can replace the 500 grams of mince, you could perhaps halve that and then replace it with other vegetables within that lasagna mix. You can change the cheese from being a full-fat cheese and full cream milk to a low-fat cheese. And it doesn't have to be ricotta or cottage cheese, it can just be a low-fat tasty cheese or a cheddar cheese. And adding in layers of vegetables as well. So think about a way that you might be able to make that meal healthier, hiding some vegetables in it as they call it, and you can do the same with the bolognese recipe as well. This is the app that I was talking about, so if you go to the App Store and you type in Food Switch, you can get a free app. And what you do with that app is you actually scan the barcode on the food, and it will actually tell you the amount of fat, saturated fat, sugar, salt in the food. And if there is a healthier alternative to that particular product, it will actually give that to you. So this can be quite helpful when you're in the supermarket and you're faced with 20 muesli bars and you're not sure which one may be the healthiest. And it will give you, you can scan it in on the barcode and it will give you not only one but several other healthier alternatives there. So a helpful app to have when you're in the supermarket and to help you make healthier choices. Now, I want to talk just in the end here about adolescent brain development. And what we now know, and this has emerged particularly over the last 10 years, as scientists have become a lot better at being able to understand the human brain and understand how it works, understand how it develops, and understand what factors may help healthy brain development and what factors may hinder it. And there are in particular 3 areas of which we have emerging evidence over the last 10 years that show that these behaviours are linked with healthy brain development. And healthy brain development is really important for you, not only as a person, but as a sportsman or sportswoman or an athlete to help you perform your best. As I said before, this is linked with things such as concentration, being able to focus, being able to have self-control, being able to perform at your best, being able to perform a gross or a fine motor skill very quickly, is all linked to healthy brain development. And the first area is sleep. How much sleep do you think you should get as a teenager at night? 15 hours, that would be good. 9 hours? 9 to 10, that's right. So teenagers need a minimum of 9 hours sleep a night, ideally 10 hours. And what we know from brain research is that not only is it the length of time, so the quantity of sleep, but it's also the quality of sleep. But they're both related. So if you sleep for a longer period of time, your quality of sleep will tend to be better. Not always, but tend to be. And when you go into sleep, your body goes through several cycles or phases of sleep, starting with rapid eye movement, moving into what we call deep sleep. And it appears to be this deep sleep that is really important for brain development. Now, what happens in deep sleep is your body, almost like a video recorder, replays a lot of what happened during that day. So when Neil's been telling you, or your coaches have been telling you how to play a particular shot and the things that you have to remember, it's during that deep sleep phase that your body is replaying all of that and it's storing it into long-term memory. And long-term memory is where it needs to be for you to be able to recall that when you need to in training or on the cricket field. Because if it gets stored in working memory, it's going to be lost and you have to go and learn it all again.
We've worked it out. Because they sleep during the day. At the session. So now they're training at night when they should be sleeping. That's a mental note for me.
So this deep sleep really helps you consolidate what you've learned and improves your memory and your recall of what it is that you have learned. Adding good amounts of sleep, so sleeping for this length of time, will bring on that deep sleep that causes that to happen. And too little sleep, so staying up too late and not actually getting adequate amounts of sleep, will not only inhibit that, so your brain won't go into that, or your body won't go into that level of deep sleep, but it will inhibit your ability to concentrate, to learn new information. So as Neil said before, if you're asleep during the training session because you haven't had enough sleep at night, that's going to inhibit the amount of information that your brain will be able to take in as well. So that's the first one. The second one has to do with alcohol. And it was once thought that the teenage brain had sort of developed almost all of its capacity by the time you got to 12 or 13.
Oh God, no.
So it almost became like an adult brain in terms of its size, but also in terms of its development. And it was almost like there was a rite of passage when, teenagers got to 12 or 13, they might be able to have, a glass of wine at Christmas time, or they might be able to, have something, an alcoholic drink. It was almost part of their normal growth and development. And it certainly wasn't seen as being something that would be shunned upon. And even in Australia nowadays, we have legal laws around the purchasing of alcohol, but not around the consumption. But what is becoming more and more clear, and if you remember nothing else except this is what's really important, is that there are parts of the adolescent brain, many parts that haven't developed until the early 20s. So parents, if you're surprised your adolescent's brain hasn't quite developed, that's normal. Okay? And it may not develop until the early 20s. That's when it will reach full development. For some of us males, it may not develop until much later than that.
The problem is the kids' brain hasn't developed, and we all drank when we were kids.
But now we know.
And now we've got brain damage and they're stupid. Is that right?
No, but now we know more than what we knew back then. And what we do know is the adolescent brain is very sensitive to alcohol. There are particular parts of the brain, the frontal lobes and also the temporal lobes, which alcohol inhibits the function of. And those parts of the brain are important for developing memory, for developing concentration, and important for cognitive or thought development as well. And it's becoming more and more clear that even small amounts of alcohol that are drunk on an infrequent basis, so not regularly, can be damaging to the adolescent brain. And it's recommended, now if you type in, again to the web, adolescent and teenage brain, there's a really nice paper done by Professor Ian Hickey, former Australian of the Year, where he talks about this. And his recommendation is that alcohol use is best postponed for as long as possible in the late teenage and early adult years. So at least until the age of 18, preferably into the early 20s. And this is just a scan. So brain research now allows us to look at the brain and see what areas are working, what areas are being stimulated, in what areas is memory being developed. And this just shows among 15-year-olds. So this is a 15-year-old who doesn't drink, and this is one that has drunk regularly. And this is their brain activity when they're doing a memory task. They're both sober when they're doing this, so the person who's drinking isn't drunk. And you can see that the red areas are the areas where the brain is being stimulated, where the brain is working, where it's being able to recall into memory what it is actually being asked to do. And there is very little, if any, brain activity in the 15-year-old who has been drinking. So if there is one way that you can see your cricketing career going downhill in terms of your memory being impaired, your concentration, your ability to be able to think and react quickly, because as your brain develops, it develops these synapses or these networks between neurons that allows your brain to communicate with other parts of your brain, but also to the rest of your body. So if they're being impaired, you're not going to be able to coordinate your body as effectively. And certainly alcohol is becoming clearer and clearer as a detrimental or a harmful effect on the adolescent brain. And the third one has to do with screen time. We're talking here about screen-based entertainment. The current screen-based entertainment recommendations for children and adolescents are less than 2 hours a day. So this doesn't include homework, it doesn't include using your computer for educational purposes, it includes all that other stuff, fun stuff. Now, some is okay, but certainly the way that most video games and screen-based entertainment is set up nowadays, there is lots of quick transitions, usually one every couple of seconds. There's lots of bright flashing lights. And what that tends to do with your brain is actually overstimulate it. So then your brain has difficulty being able to concentrate for long periods of time because it's used to being overstimulated. And if it's not being overstimulated, then it finds it hard to concentrate and to focus. So things again such as focusing, memory, even academic achievement have been linked to too much time being spent in screen-based entertainment. So it's really important again, it links with getting a good night's sleep, it links with not eating late at night, again not engaging with screens late at night, because this is something that can actually hinder your healthy sleeping patterns. So try and set a limit on, if you've got to do homework at night when you get back from training, try and perhaps do the screen-based stuff first and then finish with the non-screen-based time after that. Try and limit the amount of time, as parents, limit the amount of time to this 2 hours a day, and you can't store it all up for the weekend, unfortunately. Thinking about where the TVs are located in the house and thinking about whether they're in bedrooms or not, because it has been shown that if the TV is in a bedroom, then you're more likely to watch it, particularly at night. That's just a quick summary of some of the things that has been shown to be related to healthy growth and development, and particular brain development. I'd be happy to take any questions if anyone has any.
In the summary there, you're talking about milk and you're talking about skim milk. Like my taste buds want not that they once were. For me, skim milk is just normal milk with a dash of water added to it. What's the real benefits in kids that are developing? Like obviously, full-blown milk has got a lot more ingredients in it and a lot more proteins and everything else, whereas skim milk is slightly watered down, is it not?
No, so skim milk actually is the same as normal milk, but it just has a lot of the fat taken out of it. Now, up until a certain age, around the age of 2, it's not recommended to consume low-fat dairy. But certainly after that age, it is recommended. And actually, low-fat milk, and this isn't just skim milk, so you might be looking here at light white or shape as well as skim milk. So they have varying degrees of fat in them. That actually has more protein in it, and it has actually higher amounts of calcium in it than full cream milk does.
Is that because it's of the process, or is that because it's something that's added to it?
No, not because something is added, because when the fat is taken out, it actually increases the other components within the milk to bring it to the same volume.
What about our boys doing sleepovers before games?
Well, if they can still get 9 hours sleep on a sleepover.
Unlikely. What about Taylor? Oh, yeah, you might have some coke. What about, so they're doing some studies in the States about your eye focus on a mobile phone and then going and playing a sport and trying to refocus on a ball. So, do you think that's, because obviously we're driving in the car, they're driving in the cars to games and they're just sitting on the phone the whole time. And they're talking about how your eyes are now focusing on a screen with letters this big, and then you're going out of the bright light and you're starting to change in the sport. Do you think
There's a little bit of stuff around screens, particularly small screens, with some vascular dysfunction, some retinal dysfunction in the eyes. I can't recall exactly what that research had found, but it's an emerging area that again, it does seem to suggest that it does have some damage to particularly some of the blood vessels around the eyes. What impact that then has on being able to shift that focus to, say, a cricket ball in a game, I'm not sure, but again, I think spending excessive amounts of time in that could potentially be dangerous. Yeah.
Could you just expand a little bit more on energy drinks like Powerade and Gatorade? So especially as teenagers want, before they train, they may think that, because it's advertised that if they drink it, they get the energy they can, or to hydrate after training. Could you just expand a little bit on those drinks?
Yeah, so there's talk that those drinks, they've got benefits because they've got electrolytes and your body needs them. I mean, when you think about it really, before a game, if you've eaten a healthy diet, then there is no benefit in actually consuming a sports drink over water. There is some evidence that in extreme endurance events, that those sort of drinks can rehydrate you if your body has lost a lot of electrolytes. Now, that's in extreme endurance events. It's not what we would see in a football game or in a cricket game or in an average sporting event where you're performing at, not at a high intensity for a long period of time. Now, if someone was batting and they were batting in extreme heat with a helmet on for a long period of time, then yes, they may need some additional supplementation during that time, or particularly when they're finished. You can get that from fruit just as quickly in terms of improving your electrolytes. You're not getting it in terms of as a sugar as you would in that energy drink form. So they're really just an expensive way of drinking sugar. Some electrolytes that I think you'll probably just urinate out and won't be of any benefit unless you've been participating in endurance events. And much better to hydrate before the event with water.
Tony, during sporting event, like during a cricket day, what are the good things for the boys to get?
Snack on, you mean, during the day?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think basically a healthy diet. So I think having foods that are easy to eat, easy to digest, that are low in fat, that are low in sugar, particularly processed sugar, simple sugar, high in complex carbohydrates. So, fruit is good, dried vegetables, bread, nuts, things like that have what we call, I didn't talk about, sort of glycemic index with food, but you want food that if you're going to eat something and you've got to go out in the field for an hour and then concentrate for an hour before you can come back off again, you want something that you can eat that will release its energy slowly so that it will actually feed your brain the glucose that it needs consistently for a long period of time. If you have something that's high in sugar, you'll get that initial spike in your blood glucose. So you go, oh good, I feel really like I can concentrate now, but then it will dive down just as quick and you'll be low on energy for a longer period of time. So
Could that be why we lose wickets after drinks?
well, it depends on what
Guys have a Gatorade, then go for a big six and they're out. Actually, that's been happening.
I'm not sure how much of it is to do with having to refocus and concentrating, but again, that could be related to what you're eating.
Expanding on those energy drinks, I didn't see anything there with the V's and stuff like that. How bad they are for the young blokes?
Yeah.
What sort of research has been done on that?
Yeah, I'm not up to date with literature, but from the little I do know is that it's not good. I mean, they have large amounts of caffeine in them as well, which are not good for the developing brain, and large amounts of sugar. So yeah, I try and avoid those.
Yeah, I just see a lot of young blokes think it's the cool thing to do now is to hook into a V or whatever on their way to work. I know there's a lot of young blokes you see them in the car, a lot of apprentices in the morning, hooking a couple of V's in them. It's no good for you boys. So,
Well, it's actually been shown that a lot of those drinks have a high amount of sugar in them, as well as quite high amounts of caffeine in quite dangerous levels.
There are different types of breads. Is there a better type for them to eat, or it doesn't matter?
Yeah, so generally speaking, breads that have more whole grains are considered healthier. So whether it be multi-grain type bread, whether it even, that's probably the best type of bread that's got whole grains in it, so it doesn't necessarily have to be brown bread. Wholemeal bread is probably the next best, and then white bread is probably the least of those because it's got more processed flour in it. White flour generally used to make that, so yeah. Having whole grains, again, will be better in terms of having a lower energy release in that food, having more fibre in it as well, leaving you feeling fuller for longer periods of time.
Tony, what about the ones that are marked as lazy eye? Like all the lazy eye breads that you can get?
Yeah.
Are they, is it just a marketing
You got
thing?
your answer there.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, again, there's so many that are available nowadays. You almost have to look at the label.
Yeah.
And what I would look at for those is just look at, particularly look at the fibre content between the breads. Some of them now, they do have a symbol on them, glycemic index symbol. Some of you might have seen it's like a blue circle. So that actually, so a lower number there is better because it actually has a lower glycemic index, which is better because it has a longer and slower release of energy over a period of time.
So the wraps.
Yeah, again, if they're whole grain, they're probably good. And again, if it's probably better for your adolescent to eat white bread than eat, say, biscuits or eat something else than that. And there are some range of white breads that have, a higher amount of fibre in them than others. So, they might be a healthier option, and maybe just gradually replacing it over a period of time.
John?
When you talk about the effects of the brain and stuff like that, with alcohol, coffee and all that, can those effects be reversed through eating healthier and avoiding...
No, right.
I think they can. I think the older you get, the harder it is, because you're...
What he's trying to say is he doesn't drink anymore, and he eats unbelievably healthy, but he smashed it up when he was young. And to say to him, no, you're at where you are. You're all right.
But you certainly can undo a lot of that, yeah. What tends to happen with the brain is that it undergoes this process called pruning, which is almost like pruning a tree. So you prune away the branches that you don't use very much or that aren't going to be beneficial, and you actually look after the ones that you do want to see grow and make new connections. And your brain is the same. Right from a very young age, it starts pruning away areas that it doesn't use. So if you start to develop a particular area of your brain, whether it be through reading a lot, whether it be through spending a lot of time in sport, and particularly now if you're at an age where you're spending a lot of time learning particular skills in cricket and training your brain in particular areas, then your brain is going to respond by pruning that area and trying to make it stronger and stronger and develop neural networks there. So if things have happened in the past, you can actually retrain your brain somewhat. I don't know if it'll be as effective as it once was. So the message there is to, as much as possible for the younger kids to try and start well from the beginning.
So when you talk about the rules, when you're looking at the labels, so the 500 team generation 3, is there a rule for sugar?
There's not, as far as I know. Obviously something that's less, but what you have to understand is that sugar is largely kilojoules. So if the food is high in sugar, it will be high in kilojoules. So that's where you'll be able to see whether whether it has more sugar or less. So they're very strongly related. So yeah, that's how you can make a healthy choice around a food that has less sugar in it. Another question over there.
Yeah, I just wondered if in the line of work that you're in, that there's been research and study that's coming through now on breathing practices and meditation, helping concentration and regrowth in brain and development.
Breathing patterns?
Yeah, like using different breathing practices and meditation as a way. Is there any research that's coming through in your field?
There's some. I mean, there's a particular area of interest. It's in brain development called executive function. And executive function includes self-regulation, includes working memory, cognitive flexibility, some areas of the brain which have been shown to be really strongly related to academic achievement, to performance in a whole range of areas. So this executive function, these higher order thinking and cognitive skills. And it's been shown that vigorous physical activity is positively related to executive function, and also particular types of activity. So some of the things you said before, like meditation, martial arts, dancing, it seems to be activities where your brain might have to remember a routine or remember some type of performance or a series of steps. So some of the things like you're doing with boxing, having to remember, certain routines or certain sequences, and that again can be helpful in terms of developing executive function. So there's a bit of research around that at the moment, which seems to suggest those areas or those things. Yeah. And yoga is one of those.
It's kind of cereal.
Yeah.
What's the daily?
Yeah.
So So again for cereals,
again, for breakfast cereals, you want to be looking at something that is high in carbohydrates, that's low in sugar, high in fibre, and generally low in salt or sodium as well. So the cereals are seen to fall into that category. Wheat Bix, Vitamins. Toast is not too bad, depending on what you put on it. Crumpets are actually are good too. Crumpets are actually lower in kilojoules than bread is. Where you come undone is what you actually put on it. So if you put a lot of butter and you put a lot of sweet spreads on it, but it's the same with cereal. If you have Wheat Bix and you put a lot of sugar on it, then you're undoing a lot of the work. Porridge is really good, really good in terms of a low GI food and in terms of complex carbohydrates. So those are probably some. Sultana bran is a, if you don't like Wheat Bix, that's another healthier option. But things like, yes, you mentioned Fruit Loops, Nutrigrain, cornflakes, rice bubbles, all those. Sustain, I mean, generally those ones, if you look at them and you can see that they're high in carbohydrates, fairly low in sugar, low in kilojoules per serve, then that's usually a good sign.
I'm going to have to wind Tony up. Any other questions? But firstly, I'd like to thank Tony Okely. I think some of the, when, and I want to indulge in a story with Mitchell Stark. When I saw how Mitchell Stark was developing, or when I first saw him and I saw him throw a ball and I said, look, I think you should bowl. And I'm going to bore with some of you because you may have heard this story. I said to him, look, come and have a bowl. He said, no, I don't want to bowl. I'm a keeper. I said, dude, you're not going to be a keeper. Bowl the ball. He wouldn't bowl the ball. I said, frick, bowl the ball. So he bowled the ball. I said, you're in the team. And then we taught him how to bowl off one step, two step. He's one guy that I could say, he's totally manufactured, from coaching, but in a very natural way. And he was a guy who we did stuff like this with him from day one. What he should eat, how he should develop his body, how he should train, how many balls he should bowl. And he is where he is today. Hopefully he'll bowl well on the 10th. For you guys, there is a science and an art towards producing a player. And the stuff that Tony's talking about, and we need to realise something, is that we have to develop your body and we have to develop your brain. And when I spoke to Tony, that was my area of interest, for you to understand that it's how you make your decisions that's going to matter. And we're talking about the adolescent brain. I've got to tell you though, when you asked that question about could you reverse it, so many of you dads were listening. Really keen. They're little crackers. Crackers was like, you would.
I just wish they had this when I was 15.
So for you guys too, it's about, like I talked to you about, I know that there are studies at the moment that are talking about looking at a phone and then playing a ball sport. That your eyes are adjusting to things that are too far away from each other. And everyone...
Neil, I can supplement some of the things regarding this one.
Yes.
So usually we do have, I'm just telling regarding the fact of that.
Yes.
So usually we do have in both of our eye the lens.
Yes.
And the lens is when we see the, that's the normally we see like this. And at that period of time, the eye muscles are not, that is relaxed, eye muscles. And when we concentrate for needing the focus, the lens has to be converged more to focus. And at that time, your muscle has to work to make that one, eye muscle has to work to make that lens converge like that. And when you do over activities of that, at that time your muscle, when you do the, that is your muscle become elasticity.
Yes.
Somehow the eye muscle elasticity lost. Due to that, the people who are using too much screen thing, you will see they are becoming, that is distance vision effect, their distance vision effect too early age. Usually it has to be up to the age of 40. After 40, if your vision, that is longer vision changes, that is due to your age.
Yes.
But if it happens at the age of suppose 25, 29, some do have genetic, that is different, but if it happens other than that, that means you are abusing your eye with these sort of things,
Yeah.
the screen things, concentrating, so like computer, laptop, this is the thing.
So does that make sense? What you just said? So you think about it, I'll tell you something, guys, we cannot tell you the facts on that. I cannot tell you because we didn't grow up with that. I didn't have a phone before I went out to play. So I don't know. And we are trying to limit the amount of things that are affecting you. If, you know, in a lot of ways, what we're looking to do is cheat within the rules. By training, you're cheating. You're gaining yourself an advantage. Right? By eating the right food, you're gaining yourself an advantage. By getting the right amount of sleep, you're gaining yourself an advantage. I mean, I know every single one of you in here is desperate to make a rep team, or, you know what they said? We say, write down your goals. So I don't think your goal should be to make 800 runs. And after seeing this with Tony, I think the goal should be the whole cricket season only drink water. If someone had told me I could score more runs by only drinking water like that, I'd only drink water. It's stupid drinking beers. By eating the right type of cereal, what we know is you're going to gain an advantage. Is that right? Does that make sense? If you've slept properly, you've eaten properly, you've drunk the water, you've trained properly, you've got the right fitness level, when you go out to play, you'll have an advantage over the opposition, right? Or your competitors to get a spot in a team. My question would be, why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you do that? It doesn't make sense to not do that. Because you're actually kind of saying, well, I don't really want to make that team, or I don't really want to succeed because why are you eating those wrong foods? Now, and understand what we were talking about. Tony was talking about a developing brain. So those mums out there like you want it, you know, that's fine. No worries, your brain's developed. I was trying to look that way, but I was talking to you. There are things that you guys need to do to develop your thinking. Some of you guys that we deal with here today kind of have a reputation for being a bit grumpy, don't you? Do you know who you are? Maybe you do, maybe you don't, maybe you don't want to say, but the reality is, we talked about foods that affect mood, right? Dehydration could be one of those. You know, eating the wrong type of food, the wrong type, not enough sleep. You get grumpy when you don't sleep a lot?
Yep.
Yep. Wait till you get older, you just be grumpy all the time. Anyway, so what we're saying to you guys, and what I hope the message is coming from Tony, is that you want to look after that machine that you own, this one here, as very best you can. If you feed it right and you treat it right, you're going to make smart decisions. Because we keep talking about this game awareness. You know I think that's bullshit. It's crap. Game awareness. Game awareness is the bloke gets run over by a coke truck. Mate, if you haven't got life awareness, you're not going to have game awareness. Right? And what we need to realise in this room, we've got all of you guys with developing brains, we've got different body types, haven't we? Look, we've got the... Come here. Please. Come here. What we worked out today is we had the twins at the opposite side. Who bigger than you? So we've got the same players. We've got the same, we've got the same kids in our academy, very different builds. But everything we know is that their brain still hasn't fully developed. We know that their risk management fully develops at between 20 and 23, right? So between 20 and 23 is probably why we have, up until 23, your risk management part of your brain doesn't work great. So that's probably why a lot of young guys driving less than 23 kill themselves. because they haven't taken the risk. And when you're batting, it's a bit of a risk management sport when you're batting. There's a few guys that take a lot more risk than they need to, maybe because that's not working. So you can give yourself every advantage. Think about last year, how many games, well, I'm sure if we have a show of hands, can we say people didn't get enough sleep and performed in one game? Didn't get enough sleep for one game? 2 games? 3? 4? 5? 10? Do you reckon you had enough sleep for every game? Do you do, Mitch? Mitch, you do not lie here, I'll punch you. You're old enough to get punched. Most games? I think you're lying. Joel? Passed out. Woodsy up at night texting? Woodsy? Huh? Never? What about you, the little guy whiz kids? What about you guys? Huh? No? Always the right amount of sleep? Yeah? Lie to yourselves, why don't you? So if we can manage all that stuff, which I think, what I keep telling you is this. When we go out to the game, there's certain things we cannot control. How well the other team plays, a bowler bowls a miracle ball, the conditions of the pitch. We can't control those. Situation, when you go in, it might be, it might just be a tough run rate to keep up with, or you come on a bowl and the game's already kind of gone and it's just difficult. Can't control that. But the controllable stuff, we can control that. So how much sleep we get, eating, preparation, it all comes down to that. So that's something that we want. You right there, bro? That's something that we want you players to work on and improve. So as I said to you before, take on board, and what I'd like you to do tonight is each of you, I want to come back tomorrow on a piece of paper, one foolscap piece of paper, one white foolscap piece of paper with your name written in the top right hand corner. I want you to write 5 things down that you've got out of tonight that will help you. That you'll specifically do better to help you. That could be change from Nutrigrain to Sultana bread. Yeah, I was thinking the same. Wait till Tony goes. Does that make sense? One white foolscap, name in the top right hand corner. It's your name. Come on. And 5 things that you could use from tonight that would help you. And there's 2 things I want to give you a hint on that Tony touched upon. One was the sleep factor and the eyesight and the eye stuff. Because I think they're really, really 2 important areas for your generation of play. Because you are being affected by things that we did not have and we did not know how it would. So we can't, the people at the university that do the studies, they're looking for this information to come down because it's in some ways kind of new, some of these things that we're doing. Is that correct? So we're gathering more information so we can give you more facts. Understand this, stuff that we brought, the reason I brought Tony tonight is that I'm sure the parents have been giving you information. We've given you information. You've got information yourself. Well, these are facts. You right there, bro? These are absolute facts. We just talk about tomorrow. Is 8 o'clock too early for anyone? Not for you. You're just getting the car and drive over here, right? I'm only considering that, given how wet it is in the morning, that we might push it to 9. Does that work for everyone? Does it not work for anyone? And we'll just kind of go half an hour longer, so to 12:30. And then we'll, at 1 o'clock, still come at 1 o'clock, and we'll kind of start that at 1:30. Is everyone cool with that? Because I don't want, there's still some stuff we want to do outside. I think at 9 o'clock it'll still probably be wet, but if we start at 8, it's going to be way too wet. Okay? Does everyone know what time, who's unsure of what time they're to be here tomorrow? Who's unsure of what time they are to be here tomorrow? What time are you supposed to tell them? Okay, what time are you? What time are you? What about you, twin brother?
1.
No, he's coming at 9, he's bowling to you. Again, I'd like to thank Tony. Thank you very much, Tony. And just so the parents know, we've got Josh Clark's is helping in these 3 days. Most of you know who Josh is. Most of you know who Simon is. He's come back from a holiday. For those of you who follow Facebook, you probably know more about him than me. And John Rogers is here from Western Australia, in the Western Australian Shield Squad and one-day team. And he's training primarily here, but he kind of also wanted to help out a bit. So he's been helping the guys as well. So I just wanted to thank you 3 guys for, you know, we've been running our academy now for 2 terms. Obviously your parents, I thank you guys and the players for all your support. But in particular I wanted to thank Simon, Josh, but in particular Simon. I haven't had a chance to do that, just for his commitment to the young players. And after today's fitness test, I think all you guys can thank him in your own way as well. But good, as you know, I mean, there's a lot of young guys out there that don't take a lot of time, a lot of good players that don't take a lot of time to help out. And Simon's, you know, never too busy to try and help you guys. And he spoke to you again today. And, you know, given the knowledge base he has and what Tony spoke about today, I'm sure that you should have some questions for him on things. There's a few Keno juniors out there now, I can see, with their carrots and drinks and different things. But thanks, mate, and you know, we obviously look forward to you preparing for your season now. And we'll be ready for those player interviews tomorrow, as I said to you, from kind of around 11 o'clock there for the junior ones, and then with the senior ones from probably about 3 o'clock. Okay, any other questions? Travel home safely.